Okay, we're live. Welcome to tonight's book club. I'll give everybody just a couple minutes. And we will start it. I'm putting a link in the post right now in our feed. If you'll click on that link, I will be able to see your names, I think. At least that's what the new pop-up says. So we'll see how that works. I've never seen that before. Ah, look at there. And I have another trick. Okay. Well, I'm going to hide that back. Okay. So tonight, before we get to our guest tonight, let me just remind you that uh, November 6th, Surrender to Love comes out, and that's the third book in the Royal Vow series. And I did finally get the second book in. So here's Silent Surrender, and here is Royal Surrender. See that? And then we have book 3 coming out in November, and that's with the woman on the cover. So uh, I've been the books with AR Sears right now, and I've been getting some good comments coming back. So my fingers are crossed that you'll like this book. So let's see what else is going on. Oh, the Love Vixen. If you don't know about the Love Vixen, go check out her Facebook group or her webpage, thelovevixen.com. And let's see, I guess that is all that I have to tell you for now. So I'm just so super excited that our guest is with us tonight because I have been trying to get her for a long time to come visit with us. And finally, think I wore her down, and she finally said yes. So let me bring her up because I can't wait to talk to her. So here is Zoe York, y'all. Hey, Zoe.
Hello. And it's not, I really need to be clear to your readers that it's not that I didn't like want to come on or that you didn't need to
Mhm.
wear me down. I am just a chaotic hot mess who cannot like commit to anything. That's all. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I am super excited that you're here because you are the mama of some of my favorite books. So I'm just tickled to death that we get to chat about them. So before we get started talking about Prime Minister, um, tell us just a little bit about how you got into writing.
So I think like a lot of writers, I was a reader first, a voracious reader. And I always read books that I picked up like at yard sales or at the bookstore that I thought of as just this is that book. And then when I had my second child, a good friend of mine gave me her used Kobo. And that changed everything for me. It's like there was no waiting. You didn't have to find the next book in the series
Mhm.
at a store or even, like get it mailed to you from Amazon. It was literally just waiting for you immediately. And that was
Mhm.
magical. And reading in a series really led me to, I finished a series and I thought, I want to write that, but like in Canada. So that was the attempt at writing a series. And those books, nobody will ever see those books, but that led me down the path. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're cutting in and out. I can't. You must not have a very good connection or something.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, what is the name of your first series?
Well, so the first series that I published is called Wardom, and it is a small
Yes,
town series. It was not the first series that I tried to write. Um,
gotcha.
Once I got the idea of wanting to write a series, then I found writing groups like Romance Divas, which is an online forum, an RWA, and then I learned how to write a genre fiction romance novel because I didn't know how to do that.
So, how long of a process did that take you from wanting to publishing your first book?
Almost 3 years, 2.5
Wow.
years.
So that was learning and writing. But nowadays, how long does it take you to write a book?
Oh, um, well, so I usually think about my books in the background while I'm writing other books. So by the time I start writing a book, I've already been thinking about those characters for a long time now. And that
Mm-hmm.
really helps speed up my process. So by the time I start writing a book, it takes like somewhere between 1 and 4 months,
Okay.
usually.
Okay. We're
Yeah.
about the same. Do you
Yeah.
outline? Do you do index cards? Do you do just seat of your pants, come what may? What's your process?
So when in before a book becomes my main work in progress, when I'm just kind of thinking about it, I will write little snippets as they occur to me. And then when I go to write that book, I usually have a few thousand words stretched out over like 10 or 20 little snippets. And I
Mm-hmm.
stitch all of that together into an outline. So it's kind of like plotting, but it's plotting driven by conversations that I hear them having in my head and scenes that I see them acting out. And I stitch that together into an outline and then I write a first draft based on that.
Okay. So you go in. Do you stay pretty true to what you think you're going to?
No, never.
I don't either.
it's it always changes. There's always something I discover new about the characters that radically changes everything in that drafting and revision process.
Mm-hmm.
But there are bits from that original just like brainstormy type stuff that make it all the way to the end. So some stuff stays the same.
Mm-hmm. You have some of the best one-liners in your books. Do you think of those and work them in, or do they just happen? Are you just so good they just
Both.
happen?
No, some of them are a lot of hard work. Like if I so for example, just before we went live, we were talking about those 2 weeks before you release a book and getting all that, all the graphics ready and prepping your emails. And so one of the tasks in there is pulling out teaser lines, right? That
Mm-hmm.
lines that you think might grab somebody.
Right.
And sometimes when I am working on a book, I will pull out lines that I think, okay, later on, these might be good teaser lines.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't have enough of those by the time I'm like, the book is really coming together, I will think of some lines that the character should say because they sound really great, and I will insert them into the book.
Okay. Kind of
That's a
like a
st- that's
reverse,
kind of like a how the
reverse
peanut
grade.
butter is made. Yeah.
Well, that's what the Love Vixen. The Love Vixen wrote a book and about relationships, and she called it uh, like a peanut butter and jelly Sammy. That was the title of her book.
Nice.
I'm sorry, I'm really getting into this world.
I love
So,
it. That it's kind of an exciting idea that you have.
um, I think so. She's just a really so smart. She is so smart. I love it. So, tell us a little bit about your series.
The one that I'm currently writing, or
Well, tell us
because
about all of them. Your first was Wardem, right?
yeah, so I have how many series do I have? That's a really good question. Like as
Hey,
Zoe, I have two small town worlds, Wardham and Pine Harbor. And inside Pine Harbor, I have two series. I have the original Pine Harbor series, which is now complete, and I've just started the Kincaids of Pine Harbor. And those are both, they exist in the same world. So, for example, one of the couples from Wardham, they go on honeymoon to Pine Harbor. And there are brothers who are in each series. So that all my small town stuff is connected. It's all set in Canada, near where I live and where I grew up. And then I also have Navy SEAL books, which again, they all exist in the same Navy SEAL world. And there are 18, 19 of those books that I've written over the years. And then as Ainsley, that's it. As Zoe, I write small town and Navy SEAL books. And then as Ainsley, I have I have my Forbidden Bodyguard series, which was my very first Ainsley series. It starts with, I always call it HF. The title,
Yes.
the two words start with H and F.
I was
Hate.
wondering how I was going to refer to that tonight, and I thought, okay, I'll
HF.
just
That's what we
say,
call it. We just call it
okay.
HF. So that series I started writing in 2014. It's now done, and it exists in its own world. It's very much Washington political intrigue, which was a lot of fun to write in 2014, and then got very complicated. But then we pivoted, and in 2016 we started the Frisky Beaver series, which is, it's closer to, it's like Ainsley is writing in Zoe's Pine Harbor world. And in fact, there's a crossover. Gavin, the prime minister, appears in Pine Harbor as the prime minister. So book 6 in Pine Harbor takes place, it's called Love in a Sandstorm, and it takes place overseas. And there's a scene where Gavin, the prime minister, visits a refugee camp as the prime minister. So the prime minister tours a refugee camp where Canadians work with Doctors Without Borders, and so we see him playing soccer with the kids, and it's quite fun. So my Frisky Beavers books, they are the Ainsley version of my Zoe books, and set in Canada.
I didn't remember that about that book. I didn't remember him being in that book.
It's just, he's in one scene at near the start of the book.
It's been a while since I've read those, but I have enjoyed so much rereading Prime Minister and all the other ones. And you said that this series is finished now.
No, sorry. My Forbidden Bodyguard series is finished. My very first Ainsley series. So the Frisky Beavers series is still ongoing, but I co-write it with Sadie Holler, and having like our schedules not line up is incredibly frustrating for us as well as readers. But like, here's hoping that this winter is, if we're all stuck at home, maybe we can get back to writing that series.
So tell me how you came up with the name Frisky Beavers, which I think is just hilarious and perfect.
So this will only really make sense to anybody who's watching who might be from Ontario, the province where I live. But I named it after a bottle of wine. So we have a Frisky Beaver winery, and I made the book cover for Prime Minister. Originally, it just had my name on it. It didn't say Frisky Beaver series, and it was a joke. And I shared it with Sadie was my first reader for HF and Booty Call, the two Ainsley books I'd written before that. So I put Ainsley's name on it, and I shared it with her, and she said, "You have to write that." And I went, "I don't have time to write that." And she went, "You have to write. If you don't write that, somebody else is going to write that." So then I put her name on the cover too, and I said, "I guess we're writing this together." And then, because I'm me and I think in series, this was it was the day before April. No, it was the day before April Fools. So it was March 30th, 2016. And the next morning, so I made the cover. It didn't have a series name. And then the next morning, a reader on Twitter was doing like funny April Fools reviews. So for example, like the book title Bad to the Bone, was expecting a shifter romance, turned out to be a dog obedience manual 1-star review. like as a joke, right? So I made a joking review of a book called Dr. Bad Boy. Was expecting it to be Neil Patrick Harris fan fiction, highly disappointed, 1-star review. And then I went, wait a second. That sounds like it would be a really good book in a like a second book in a series, Prime Minister and then Dr. Bad Boy. And then Sadie said, well, what's our series name going to be? And by that point, that was like the evening of April 1st. And I was drinking a bottle of Frisky Red, which is their red wine from this
Uh-huh.
winery. And I looked at that and I went, I think, can you guys see my hand? I was like, and then I thought, Frisky Beavers, that's what they're going to call Puck Bunnies in the series. And that's
Oh.
that's where the series name came from.
Well, okay, so I think that I had just a little bit to do with that then because my birthday's April 1st. So maybe maybe I was
Yeah, so
sending you
that's
vibes.
the series was born on April 1st.
I say it's just fate. Well, I'm glad I could help you with that. Okay, let's see. Let's get to some questions. We have
Mhm.
lots of questions. Okay, well, we kind of know what Marisol wanted to know what inspired the story. So we know that now.
Mhm.
Um, could you elaborate on the including? Is it how do you pronounce Lachlan? Lachlan?
Lachlan.
Lachlan.
Lachlan. Yeah.
Okay, I'm from the south. We don't know that here.
It's a Scottish name. Yeah, Lachlan
Okay.
Ross.
Could you elaborate on the including Lachlan thing? Gavin clearly hated it, and even at the end, Ellie was jealous of an old video.
Oh, at the end of the book, Ellie was jealous. Yeah. So I would not say that Gavin hated it. I think that it's kind of hard for me to okay, so I think that both Gavin and Ellie don't have the same relationship to jealousy that I have, for example, as a person. So if Gavin and Ellie weren't in the position that they are in currently, right, being private, like
Mhm.
they can't really be just like private people
Right.
exploring their sexuality, but they would probably be swingers, honestly. Like in the moment, Gavin was jealous in the moment. Absolutely. At the end of the book, Ellie is absolutely jealous when she sees that video. But neither of them hang on to that jealousy for very long. Um, and like I think in the book, it's a mistake to include Lachlan as a third, but it's not a mistake for them to have a threesome because that's something which they're like satisfies a part of their sexuality. Lachlan was like the only option. He was not the best option because he's somebody who's close to them. But when you like, I think the thing about characters in books is that sometimes they get to make bad decisions to learn from those bad decisions. But that bad decision wasn't like emotionally devastating for any of them. Um, and the other reason is because Lachlan's really hot, and I just wanted to, like, but also I think a little bit to demonstrate the Lachlan's character too, like the relationship that he and Gavin have, how much they trust each other, that Ellie can be trusted with him, and we see this later in the series, that Ellie, like Ellie's not like really like she doesn't have that kind of attack. She's not like attracted to Lachlan in terms of wanting to have a relationship with him. Um, but they will forever have that bond of having shared that experience. And thus, he is somebody who Gavin can trust to protect Ellie. Like later on in the series, Ellie goes to a sex club just to observe, and Gavin can't go. But Ellie sneaks out, and Lachlan is the person who facilitates that for her. So it's just about making the best of a weird situation. I think that's how I would describe that scene.
So thinking ahead, Lachlan has his own book.
He does. Yeah, his book is the third book.
Mhm. And I've always wondered how Ellie and his, I'm not going to give anything away, the person
Mm-hmm.
that how that, you know,
Because they
uh,
have a scene where they talk about that, right? Yeah.
uh-huh, uh-huh. That's cool.
So I think the other thing, without giving too much away, I don't think this gives away anything for Lachlan's book. This gets deep into like how sexuality is really complex and different people's kink.
Mhm.
And Lachlan's kink is really a service oriented one. He's not really a top or a bottom, he'll switch. But he it deeply pleases him to serve people. And that's when people ask about that threesome, like if I could sit down and be like, okay, let me tell you about service kink, that what like Lachlan really was, it pleased him greatly to give that pleasure to Gavin and Ellie, making the best of a weird situation. But he didn't have any kind of attachment to either of them. It was truly just like, um, it was for him, it was just a scene, not really like a sex act, even though it was like a sexual scene, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yep. They just get better and better the further you get into the series. Um, and too, let me make sure everybody understands that you write as Zoe York, but you also
Hmm.
write as Ainsley Booth. And your
Yeah.
Zoe York books are not like your Ainsley Booth.
No, I do have in my Seal series, I do have a couple of books that deal with kink. Fall Quiet, Fall Dirty. That's it. Just those two. And then I have another book which is out of print that I wrote as Zoe that deals with kink too. And then I also have like Full Mountie um is a triad, polyamorous triad with two heroes and one heroine. And I do have one book like that in my Wardham series. It's called All That They Desire, but it's not kink based. And the Ainsley book, it's like it's not really a heat difference between the two pen names, but most of my Ainsley books deeply explore kink, and like very few of those characters are vanilla. And so when I talk about like Ellie and Gavin being swingers, like that is just deeply intrinsically in the fiber of that series.
Right.
Nobody in that series is vanilla, and so there's some of those vanilla expectations about like, you know, monogamy, and because they're monogamous, but they're they're monogamous by circumstance. Probably like they would never be polyamorous, but I could totally see them swinging.
But your Zoe York books are more
There's
family oriented, small town,
yeah,
heart books.
more vanilla,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, but still high heat. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Um, what did you like best about Gavin?
Oh, I love everything about Gavin. I love the way that he looks in a pair of blue jeans.
I could just see them, the worn, soft blue jeans.
Yeah. Um, I love how he is with his staff. I really love the dynamic. Like there's a lot of scenes of him in his office. Because I love all of that. I think that he's a good leader. Um, I like how imperfect he is and how much he struggles with his attraction to Ellie. I like how romantic he is with Ellie. I really loved their first date. There's a lot.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
just yesterday on Twitter, there was one of those things like ask me 18 questions kind of thing. And one of them was, which of your characters would you like to bring to life? And my answer is Gavin, always, every single
All.
time. I would love to bring him to life. Yeah.
Well, he didn't. I think that by him being elected prime minister, he didn't expect to be
He did
um,
not. Yeah,
elected.
there's a lot of detail there that isn't actually on the page, which is based in not on anybody and certainly not on our real prime minister. that part of it. But we have had in Canada elections where parties have gone from being absolutely decimated at the polls and only having one or two members of parliament to then having a surge in the next election and very unexpectedly rising to power. And that is it's a very uniquely Canadian political turnaround thing that happens. It's happened over and over again. And I can get really geeky about that kind of stuff. So that's kind of, there is some real life, this could actually happen, events behind Gavin's very unexpected rise. Yeah.
Um, how did the idea of writing a romance novel involving a prime minister in Canada come about? I like your prime minister, Gavin, better than our current PM. And that is from Melissa, who lives in Canada as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm not going to lie, a little bit of it was based on the fact that lots of people, particularly outside our country, like a lot of people outside our country, have like a little bit of a crush on the real PM. But Gavin is not the real PM. And part of it was the topical nature of people going, somebody's going to have to write a hot prime minister book. And I was like, so that's why I made the cover. Maybe Melissa missed that, the start of that story. I made the cover as a joke because somebody said, I can't believe there isn't Trudeau fan fiction. And then I made the cover. And if you look at the cover closely, you'll see that he more closely resembles like Charlie Hunnam than he does Justin Trudeau. And that in my head, like Gavin is like a dirty blonde. And a lot of people are shocked. And I'm like, but he's right there. He's on the
Oh.
cover. Yeah. But it was, I made the cover first. So the short answer to what inspired me was that photo.
That photo. Do you know where each story is going to take you before you even start writing? Or does it just, okay, we've already really talked about this, about that you think as you're writing, things come to you about. Um, I have to ask, as you are a fellow Canadian and not that far from Melissa's hometown, have you ever been to Muskoka? Did I pronounce that right?
Muskoka, yeah.
Also, everywhere known as the cottage country. You ever been there?
Yeah. So, my family goes to Fern Resort, which is in just outside of Aurelia, every couple of years for our family reunion. Which is, that's, I mean, I think that's technically not Muskoka. It's like just south of Muskoka. But yeah, love cottage country. My preferred cottage country is Bruce County, and the Bruce Peninsula, because that's where my family is from, and that's where Pine Harbor is set. So every year we go up to Bruce County, but every couple of years we go to Fern Resort, which is kind of my Muskoka adjacent experience. And I've been lucky enough to attend a couple of weddings in Muskoka, and like I have never seen a prettier wedding than that. So yeah.
So, are all of your books set in Canada?
No, not so. I have about half and half. So for Zoe, my small town books are set in Canada, and my Navy SEAL books are set in Coronado Beach, in San Diego. And then as Ainsley, I have some books set in like Washington and New York, like big American cities, and then some set in big Canadian cities.
Okay. Have you been across the border lately?
Well,
That's not
no,
a
we're not
question. That's
allowed.
from me.
Not allowed recently, but like I love to travel. So I've been to, in 2016, I went to San Diego and spent a lot of time in Coronado, which was an amazing experience. It's a wonderful city and a wonderful small military community inside a larger city. Last summer, I was in New York City, which I absolutely love. Last winter, I went to Houston for a writing conference, and I was supposed to go back. I was supposed to go to Montana this summer for a writing retreat, and then of course that got canceled, which I'm really bummed about.
A lot of things have changed that we never thought
Yeah,
would.
but we'll get
Um,
back to it. I have hope
yeah,
that by next summer we'll be traveling again.
I hope. I hope. I want to see my grands so bad. They're in
Oh,
Ohio and I'm in North Carolina. I
oh,
haven't
that's
seen them in
far.
all. It's an 8 hour drive.
Hmm.
Saw them last November and I haven't seen them since. They're two and 4.
They change so much at that age. Yeah, fingers crossed that you get to
I
see them
know.
soon.
Why the age difference between Gavin and Ellie?
Because an age gap is hot. Um, yeah, it was a little bit a send up of that classic innocent trope because she's not really innocent. And he doesn't need to teach her very much, like she teaches herself. But mostly because an age gap is hot.
Okay, we'll go with that. Is your prime minister, well, we've kind of already talked about this. Is your prime minister perhaps inspired by any past or current prime ministers?
Yeah, I mean there are some things that I did draw real inspiration from because I really do like to ground my books in reality. So, like the fact that Ellie does yoga is absolutely inspired by the fact that Sophie Trudeau loves yoga. Um, and some of the mannerism, like some of the staff. So, in the book, Stu is based on the real like principal secretary at the time for Justin Trudeau. Um, some of the other staff, I really get very geeky about the real politics behind things. The tampon tax that is mentioned in the
Yes,
book is a real thing. That was a real thing that was
I
really
didn't.
called out by a friend of mine who's an economist. So that was my little nod to like real policy problems.
Wow. Um, that I had no idea. You know,
Yeah.
American,
Well,
no
they
idea.
also call it sometimes like a pink tax. The fact that like some ladies' things have tax and men's things are considered primary health, etc. It was actually resolved before the book came out. So that was just like my little for anybody who would be in the know, that's all.
The
Yeah.
nod to the no.
The nod to the know, yeah.
Let's see. I love how Gavin realized Ellie didn't deserve to be uh, his little secret and set out to woo
Hmm.
her.
Yeah. When the other prime minister that it's sort of based on is a fictional one, and that's the prime minister in Love Actually. And the scene in Love Actually, if anyone's seen it, there's a scene where the prime minister shows up at his crush's door. And so that definitely inspired the Gavin showing up at Ellie's door.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hotness alert. Where did where did you do your research?
Okay, so I mean, like, Tumblr used to be really great for research, and then it got kind of prudish. I but not before I wrote Prime Minister, but before I wrote, oh gosh, I can't keep my dates straight. Um, before Well, actually, maybe not before I wrote any of them. After the fact, I've actually been to a BDSM club in Orlando. But I think that I went after I wrote all of these 4 books. But like I did more book research there. But pretty much most of what I
Okay.
know,
You just
yeah.
opened the can of worms, so well, you got to tell us about this.
Okay, so it's actually, do you know Calypso Masters? Calypso's an amazing author. She has in the past written BDSM romance. And she came to Canada and had a conference in Burlington, which is near Toronto. And she flew a couple, Cecil and Darcy, up from Orlando to teach us all about writing kink and reading kink properly. Not properly, that's not the right word, but like just, getting it right, getting the details right. And
Believably.
Cecil and Darcy, believably, did this amazing in-depth workshop for us. And then the following year, so that was I think before we wrote Full Mountie. I think Sadie and I went to that. We only had Prime Minister and Dr. Bad Boy out at that point. And then based on the Cecil and Darcy workshop, we wrote Full Mountie and Mr. Hattrick. And then I flew down to Orlando for another book signing, the Shameless Book Con. And because I was in Orlando, my husband and I went to Cecil and Darcy's club, which is called the Woodshed. Anybody, if you ever go to Orlando and you're ever curious, you can email them. Darcy is amazing. Her name is Darcy, and you can contact her through the Woodshed's Facebook page or through email, and they will you to say, I'm a romance reader. I read these books, and I would be like amazed to go and see like a real dungeon. And it's an incredible experience. It's very safe. It's very clean and fascinating. And then I got like a bajillion ideas to put in future books.
Wow. So
Yeah.
did you like have a mask on or anything?
No, there's nobody can take any pictures. You can't have your phone. So it's incredibly safe. So what did I see? I saw like a St. Andrew's cross. They had a giant, this is my most favorite thing, and I don't know which book it's going to end up in yet, but they had a giant bird cage, like 10, 12 feet tall, with a giant creaky door. That was just like sent chills up my spine. Loved it. Like lots of tether points, this like chains from the ceiling that you could be attached to. There was lots of like equipment, foggers and whips and crops and stuff like that, which you could use. They had some boundaries, like there's no, you can't have intercourse there. And everyone needs to wear at least bottoms. So you must wear like panties. A woman can't be fully nude. I think she needs to wear bottoms. Yeah. And then there's no ejaculate. This is all over Facebook, isn't it? Well, that's the reality of author research.
Well,
So it's pretty
so
like, I mean, it's intense, but it's not it doesn't ever feel like you're crossing a line in yeah. It was just really fascinating and wonderful.
So it's really nothing like what probably readers think it is.
Well, so there are clubs like that, but they aren't open to the public. Like, so if a club, for example, is one, and it depends on the region, but in Orlando, you can't have a club that's open to the public where you charge them money to come in and have sex on the premises. That's just like a fast way to get shut down. And so the club that you and I have access to enter as a member of the public and pay our fee to go in, there can't be sex there. There's all sorts of like private rooms in people's homes, basements, like how we have it set up in a later book in this series is that there's a private residence which is converted to a dungeon. Mm-hmm. Those absolutely exist, but I haven't been to those, but I know of them. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. Yeah. How many genres do you write, and what is your favorite?
My favorite is small town romance. Absolutely. It's the one that I write most often. So I write small town romance. I write Navy SEAL, like military romance. I write erotic romance. And I have written one science fiction romance series. And I really love that one, but it's so sporadic that my muse goes there that it's not like, it's very hard to build kind of any kind of readership there. But like of those, if I have to rank them, it's small town romance, then erotic romance, and then military romance is my third favorite. But I love them all.
I've heard you refer to your husband as the Viking. Is he the inspiration for your Vikings in Space series?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit. It's him crossed with like Star Trek. Yeah.
And your husband's in the military, right?
Yes, he is at Canadian military. Yeah.
Let's see. I enjoy when your sister joins you. Does she write?
My sister does not write at all. My sister works in radio, and she's a reader, but she doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't write. She just likes to talk about book marketing. Yeah.
Um, I think I saw you when you were at a conference somewhere. You were in the hotel room doing a live
Yes, yeah.
with
If
her
I traveled
with
with
your sister.
Yeah, yes. If my sister and I are in the same city, so my sister's actually moved to Ottawa, where Prime Minister is set. She just
Oh,
moved very recently. So I joke with her that like I'll be coming and visiting for research, but I'm not
definitely.
joking. Yeah.
As this was a co-authored book, can you describe how collaborating with another author works?
So I have co-written with two people and tried with others, and sometimes it's really hard to kind of get off the ground. So part of it is about having good chemistry with somebody, but even if you have good chemistry with somebody, you also have to have the right project. And so the right project is one that you're both really enthusiastic about, that you both have lots of ideas for. Like the idea generation just kind of happens effortlessly. As soon as it starts to feel like hard work to come up with the ideas, then that's a danger zone for co-writing. It's a lot like any other kind of collaborative work project. So you want to have a good a good form of communication, like a good online workspace, shared Dropbox, Messenger, that sort of thing, so that you can agree. And also, then you need to agree on your work schedule. And this is the hardest part for Sadie and I because we live on opposite ends of the country. She lives in British Columbia. She's 3 hours ahead of me. And often by the time she's starting her workday, I'm done my workday because my kids have come home from school. So we really have this like when it works, it usually works because she is like her husband travels for work twice a year. He's gone for about a month at a time or 3 weeks at a time. And if we can sort it out so that I'm not working on something else during that time, then it's so much easier for her to get up early and kind of match my work day. Um, and and then we have to so a bunch of things have to fall into place. Our schedules have to align. We have to be enthusiastic about the same project at the same time. We both have to have our schedules free for writing. And then how does it work? It's a lot of back and forth. Like I'll draft something, stick it in the Dropbox, she'll read it, add something else to it. Like some people do you take Gavin, I take Ellie. Except yeah, that's how we pretend like that's how we anticipated that it would go. That lasted like 3 chapters because I love to write the start and end of a chapter, and Sadie loves to write the middle. So that
Oh,
works really best for us. So we tended to draft the chapters where I would do the start and the middle and or start and the end, and in the middle I would give her like a little scene direction. Like, I don't know, I think they do something like this. And then she would draft that. And I kind of think of it as being a little bit like a showrunner. Like the vast majority of TV shows are very much a collaborative writing project where there's a writer's room, but one person is the showrunner and they kind of say yes, no. I'm a little bit bossy in that regard. Like I like to be because I see it all in my head. So this series, I definitely am like the showrunner. And then on the other end of it, Sadie's very much the editor. Like I, as soon as a story is drafted, I have emotionally moved on to the next thing. And Sadie is very willing to go over it and over it again and make sure that it's all of the editing is right, the formatting is right, everything's consistent. I don't care that much about consistency, let's be honest. I should. That's what I pay editors for. But she's really good about making sure that all the threads are pulled together at the end. So I kind of I'm at the start and then she's at the end. And in the middle we kind of alternate with the text.
what does Sadie write?
Sadie writes a lot of BDSM romance. That's the other reason why I really wanted to write this series with her, was because I hadn't written BDSM romance before, and I wanted to, like, when she was like, "Oh, you have to write this," I'm like, "But you know the Prime Minister's kinky, and I've never ever written that before." So so that was that was also part of it, was looping her in for that reason. So she her first series before the Frisky Beavers was about classical musicians. And now she has a series set in Hollywood.
Okay.
And they're all kinky. Yeah.
Somebody says you're 40 minutes away from my hometown. That's
Oh,
Melissa.
nice.
Let's see. The clubs you read about in books are mega private.
Yeah.
So you did a podcast with her for a while also.
My sister, yeah. So we have a podcast
Oh.
called The Sister Podcast. And there are 4 episodes that are really specifically about books, and then the rest are just about being sisters. And we'll pick it up again, but like, life got in the way. It often
Doesn't it
does.
though? Doesn't
Yeah.
it though? So tell us what's ahead for Zoe and Ainsley.
So, as Zoe, I was telling you this morning or this afternoon when we did our little test, I have a surprise Navy SEAL Christmas story coming out, but I actually don't know when, and I can't tell you any more about that. But tease,
And I
basically,
tried.
yeah, my story is called A Navy SEAL for Christmas, and it's about a math teacher who takes an art class because she always wanted to be an artist, and the art class is a life drawing class where the model is nude. And then he, of course, walks in. He's the most beautiful person she's ever seen, and you're not allowed to think that your life drawing model is the most beautiful thing. You have, like, it's supposed to be really professional. And
Clinical,
she's a
right?
math teacher. She's really like ethical, so she's not going to cross that line. But he lays eyes on her, and he thinks she's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen, and he doesn't really care about that silly waiver that she had to sign. So, and that it all starts like 5 days, 6 days before Christmas. So it's about the countdown to Christmas. He's her model 4 nights in a row. And then, of course, by the end of the 4th night, once they no longer have that waiver in between them, then he's free to seduce her. And it's just like, it's like a really dirty Hallmark movie. It's very cute. It's set in San Diego. There's a Christmas tree hunt involved. So that comes out sometime in the middle of November in a surprise anthology. So I'll be sharing it everywhere,
Okay.
like between November and December.
Is that a
Yeah,
Zoe
and
book
that's
or an Ainsley?
it's a Zoe book.
Zoe.
It's kind of high heat, but it's like vanilla high heat. And then my next Ainsley book, I have a duet where the first book comes out in December, the second book comes out in March. And it's a duet in that it's a 2-book series, but each book is about a different couple. So each book is a standalone, but they're linked. There's like they're brothers, and it's very angsty, but it takes place in the same kind of universe. It's the same universe as the Frisky Beavers, and same kind of kink exploration, just a little darker, a little bit messier, but with happy endings, of course.
Oh, someone asked, am I allowed to ask about Whisper Beach? I think I saw a
Yes.
reference a while back.
Yes, of course you can ask about Whisper Beach. So Whisper Beach is the spin-off series of my very first. So my very first series is called Wardom, and it's complete now at 10 books. And there is a trilogy of stories that will spin off of it. And I hope to write them, to start writing them next year. It's on my to-do list, like a lot of other projects, but Sadie and I need to get Bull of the Woods done first before I start
Yes.
anything else. Yeah.
Yes, we really want you to finish that.
Yeah.
We really do. Um, okay, so any new series that you're thinking of doing in the
So
future?
Yeah, so this so Bull of the Woods, which is the final, probably the final book in the Frisky Beaver series. So I okay, I'm gonna share this, but like this can't go on Goodreads.
We
Okay.
won't tell anybody. Go ahead, Zoe. Go ahead.
So Bull of the Woods might be the last book in the Frisky Beaver series, or there might be one after called Private Citizen. And I don't want to commit to that until we finish Bull of the Woods. And at the end of Bull of the Woods, we'll know whether or not there'll be another novel or not. It's also possible that we might wrap up the series with Bull of the Woods and then write Private Citizen down the road. But Private Citizen would be a second Gavin and Ellie novel on the other side of public service. So once they're swingers, let's be honest. And it would be crazy hot and really, really good. So, but basically, Bull of the Woods is kind of the end of the new couples, right? So each person getting their own book in the Frisky Beaver series. But there's a whole fictional hockey team in Vancouver that Tate went to, that Jack used to own. Jack is the hero of Bull of the Woods. And so like I think that on the other side of Frisky Beavers, we could totally write a hockey series set in Vancouver. Like I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's down the road. And then this duet that I have, it's called Secrets and Lies Duet, and it's Tempt is the first book and Shame is the second book. Depending on so that's set in Toronto, and depending on how people like that, there's also a Frisky Beavers type series, like based at a club that could be set in Toronto. That I in my head I'm kind of calling the Kinky Village series. So like you know like Liberty Village, but like kinky is the idea for, and the only people who will get that reference are people who know Toronto.
I don't know. So that will be an Ainsley series.
Those are all Ainsley ideas. As Zoe, I'm really writing like Pine Harbor and then Whisper Beach, like just the small town stuff. Right. Maybe like this Navy SEAL book was a lot of fun to write. But I really love writing the small town stuff. So I think like this Navy SEAL Christmas story could be the start of an annual Navy SEAL Christmas story series. Like we get one Navy SEAL story every Christmas. That might be kind of fun. Yeah.
So, walk us through, and I should have asked this earlier, but I just now thought of it. Walk us through the Frisky Beaver series. It starts with Gavin and Ellie.
Yeah. Yeah, so Gavin and his best friend Max are the first two books. Max's book is the second book in the series. And
Max is the doctor.
And Max is the doctor who was once a child TV star. So when I say Neil Patrick Harris fan fiction, I'm serious about that. And but Max came back to Canada to go to school, and Gavin and Max met at college. And so each book in the series follows a different person who plays hockey on this pickup hockey team with Gavin. So obviously the first book is Gavin's book, and then the second book is Max, and then Lachlan is the third book, and then the fourth book is Tate, and then the last book will be Jack's book. And Jack and Gavin go back way back from when Gavin lived in Vancouver and was a lawyer.
But isn't there a book somewhere in there that's about Gavin and Ellie?
Oh, yeah. So there are lots of little short stories. So Gavin and Ellie, we see them again in New Year's Eve, and then again in His Bride. Those are all little short stories. Yeah.
And are those? Do you have those on sale?
Yeah. So they're called Frisky. They're called Frisky Beavers Quickies, and you can get them.
I like just love your titles.
They're really like they're kind of what's the word, like an interstitial. They happen in between the novels, but they're not whole novels. And then there are two other short stories, Retrosexual, which is about Stu, the chief of staff, and his wife having a dirty weekend in Toronto. And then Baz and Meadow, which is like Baz and Meadow's book is a robust novella. It's longer than the other three quickies, but it's shorter than the novels. We wrote it as a Halloween story. It's perfect for now. So Baz plans a street party, a Halloween street party that he starts out meaning for it to be like a just like a regular community event, and then it rapidly turns kinky. So then Ellie shows up,
Yeah.
and there's actually a chapter in so that book is called Page of Swords because it's based on a tarot card. And there's actually a chapter in Ellie's point of view in Page of Swords. So Gavin and Ellie bounce like through the books, and we see their wedding in Full Mountie. They're definitely very much on the page throughout the whole series.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember how that worked because I remembered reading about their um,
And we used
engagement
to
and then
have
their.
Yeah, so we used to have New Year's Eve and His Bride. They were like newsletter reads, but then people like to have them on their Kindles and they lose them if they sideload them. So we just made them available for sale in kind of their own series arc. And Retrosexual is free. That's Stu's book. His Bride and New Year's Eve, those are both like 99 cents. And then Page of Swords, which is like a longer one. And I would love to write some longer ones, but it's hard. It's weird. Some series really lend themselves to more robust full novels. Like my Navy SEAL books, they're always really easy to write as a novella. And the kinkier stuff, I really want like a full like 80 to 100,000 words to really explore that. I get really like geeky about that stuff too.
Oh goodness. Let's see. Somebody asks about Full of the Woods.
Oh, just being excited about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody else likes Frisky Beavers. Uh, Page of Sword, and can't wait for Page of Sword. Oh, okay. So we need to look for Zoe and Ainsley books coming up, and the
Yeah.
super secret one that you won't tell us about
It's coming
coming
very
soon.
soon. Yeah.
And, and where can we find you? Where can we
So
find
both
you at?
both pen names have websites, zoeyork.com and ainsleyBooth.com. I also have, if you are on Instagram, follow my Ainsley account. I don't post that often, but when I do, I often post like right now, I have a snippet up, a screenshot of some words from the upcoming Tempt in December, and they're spicy. And I also like my Ainsley Instagram often has like inspiration pictures that are they're safe for Instagram, don't worry. But like they remind me of Tumblr before Tumblr got prudish. I try and find like really evocative pictures that kind of capture that the power dynamics and stuff like that I really love about my Ainsley books. And so I'm Ainsley Booth Writes on Instagram, and I'm also Zoe York Writes on Instagram. And my Zoe Instagram is much more lively, so you can follow me on both of those.
Well, if you ever have trouble finding uh, pictures like that, I have this one reader that will be glad to help you. Pat is excellent at picking out those types of pictures, and I've had to uh, uh, um,
You have to be
tame her
careful.
down a little bit.
Yeah, you have to be careful on social media. I have learned the
Yes,
rules. Yeah.
yes. Well, we have Hot Guy Friday on in my private group on Fridays, and um, I have had to kind of remove some of her pictures, but she just finds the really good pictures that we all love.
Yeah. Lovely.
So I'm sure Pat will be glad to help you. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you
And
for having me.
I was so excited when you said yes that you would do this. So I'm just thrilled to get to talk to you and to know the mama behind the books that I have loved for so long, and to pick your brain to see how you get such uh, um, intelligent, uh, huggable books out is
Oh,
just it's just remarkable and an inspiration to an author like me. So thank you
thank you
very much.
so much for having me. This was lovely.
So maybe you'll come back next year sometime.
Absolutely. Yeah, once
Yeah,
Full of the Woods comes out, we can have a whole series talk.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go for now. Thanks very much. Okay, guys, that's it for our our book club tonight. Let me tell you who our author for next month is going to be. And unfortunately, I can't show you a picture because the program has taken that away from me, but I'll post it in our Facebook group as soon as the show is over. It is an author that I have read for a very long time, and she does royal books so well. If you have not read her, check her out. We are going to be talking with Nicole Burnham next month, the last Monday in November. And the book is Fit for a Queen. And I'll post that and the links as well in our group right after the meeting. So for now, I'm going to say bye and thanks so much for coming. We'll see you next month.